Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today in Tallinn, Estonia, by the gracious invitation of the Estonian Defense Forces, specifically the Support Command Supply Battalion, who has a bunch of interesting Estonian firearms, and we're taking a look at a couple of them today. Now, specifically today, we have a pair of Soviet-made sporting pistols. This is the TOZ-36 and the TOZ-49. And you might wonder, why does the Estonian Defense Forces have Soviet sporting pistols? And the reason is that these were actually used in schools during the Soviet era for shooting teams. And when Estonia took its independence, they ended up taking in a bunch of these guns from schools in Estonia. So that's where they came from. That's why they're here. Now, these are essentially the same basic pistol, but the early one, the TOZ-36, uses the standard 7.62 by 38 rimmed Nagant cartridge, where the TOZ-49 that came a bit later uses a short 26mm version of the same cartridge. But they're both gas seal sporting revolvers, so pretty interesting. Well, let's take a closer look at them. All right, so here's the pair of them. You can very clearly see the difference in cylinder length. We're going to start with the earlier TOZ-36. We have the model marked right there, TOZ-36. That is the commercial Tula mark. On the opposite side, we have a CCCP logo right there and the serial number. Up until the introduction of the TOZ-36, formal Soviet international bullseye competition shooting teams actually used Smith & Wesson 38s, and it's understandable that they would want to have a domestically designed and manufactured gun to use instead, and that was in fact the TOZ-36. So this was introduced in 1962, designed by a Russian by the name of E.L. Khadirov, and it's not exactly an 1895 Nagant for a couple reasons. First off, it is single action only, so pulling the trigger does nothing unless it's been manually cocked, but it does retain the gas seal system, but it works a bit differently. So if we look in there, we actually have a block that comes forward when you cock the hammer. So right in there, there you go. You can see that come forward, and that is actually pushing the cylinder forward. On the 1895 Nagant, we have a cam at the bottom that pushes the cylinder forward. On this, it is essentially the firing pin itself is attached to that cam. Loading is done via a gate, just like the 1895 Nagant. When the hammer is down, the cylinder will spin freely, so you don't have to put it at half cock to load the thing. We have our cylinder axis pin right here. It's just got a little spring-loaded detent, so I push it over to the side. I can pull the pin out and drop the cylinder out. Note that this is a 6-shot cylinder, where the 1895 Nagant service revolver was 7 shots. That's simply because the international shooting standard for competition was 6 shots. A 7-shot revolver was really an anomaly, and so there was no good reason to put a 7-shot cylinder in a specifically competition gun. With the cylinder removed, you can get a much better view of this block right here. So that's the hand that's indexing the cylinder, and then this is pushing the cylinder forward. There is a firing pin, it's a spring-loaded firing pin in there, and that's what the hammer hits. Lastly, when the hammer is cocked, we have this cylinder stop that lifts up. That's going to lock into one of these notches lined up with one of the chambers, and that prevents the cylinder from rotating once it is cocked and ready to fire. So that lifts up, that rotates into place, that pushes the cylinder forward. If you're not familiar with the 1895 Nagant, the idea of the cartridge basically is that the brass sits farther out than the bullet. The brass actually comes all the way out the end of the cylinder, and the cylinder nests over the end of the barrel right there. So you can see that forward movement. The brass then is just long enough to actually cover the gap between the barrel and the cylinder, so you get no loss of gas pressure out the gap between the cylinder and the barrel. So when I pull the trigger, that's going to come back, and there it is in the forward position. back, and forward. The sights are obviously set up for bullseye competition, so a nice long sight radius. We have a big open rectangular notch there, windage adjustable, a nice square front post here. So you'll notice the sights tapered in the front. That's so you get a really clean, sharp, square presentation of the front sight, important for target shooting. Now the TOZ-36, as I said, was introduced in 1962, and it was produced until 1975, so a 15-year run. And in 1975, it was replaced by the TOZ-49. Now this is essentially the exact same pistol, but chambered for 7.62 Nagant short, 26mm instead of 38mm. Note, of course, both of these have basically customized grips. They are right-hand only grips. This is very much the typical bullseye competition style of grip, made to really well form fit the hand of the individual shooter. Markings are pretty much the same here. CCCP, the Tula commercial factory mark, designation is TOZ-49. And we have a serial number over here, and this one's actually marked. Now, the changes made on the 49, aside from the shorter cartridge, include adding an actual ejector, which is this guy. The 7.62 Nagant short cartridge was a gas seal cartridge, just like the regular Nagant. And normally, you would expect to have a rod as an ejector that can reach down and hit the base of the cartridge to knock the case out. In this case, they actually just added this short little ejector sort of stub. And the reason is, when I push that back, it will actually hit the exposed extra long section of the brass. And pushing that brass case in just a little bit is enough to free it from being stuck in the cylinder, and that's really all you need to pop the cases out. So kind of cool. Honestly, a system like this would work on the 1895 service revolver as well, but they never actually used it there. The other difference is that the TOZ-49 is a little more customizable than the 36. So the 36 had a set screw allowing you to adjust trigger over travel. The TOZ-49 maintains that over travel screw, but also has adjustability for the trigger weight and the sear release weight. So it really lets you dial in the pistol to exactly what you're personally looking for. And this was a very successful, very effective bullseye competition pistol. A Russian by the name of Mikhail Nestrayev actually set a world record with one at Grenada in 2007, shooting a 594 out of 600 on the bullseye circuit. So even fairly late, fairly recently, these are still very good guns. Note we have the Tula factory, commercial factory mark down there as well. Introduced in 1977, these were in production until the early 1990s. This particular example from the serial number is a 1987 production gun. Note we still have nice, the same style of sights, windage, and elevation adjustable with that good, very nice, crisp, square front sight. And the same disassembly and internal system as the TOZ-36. So there is our little block that pushes the cylinder forward. There's the cylinder lock. There's the hand that rotates it, and the exposed section of the barrel. Both of these revolvers are pretty darn scarce in the United States. There wasn't a whole lot of small arms importation from the USSR into the United States during the Cold War. So it's really cool to get a chance to look at these here. Now, there are some that have filtered into the United States over the years, and usually you will find those actually converted. Well, the 7.62 Nagant ones are fine. The TOZ-49s you'll usually find converted to 32 Smith & Wesson short, I believe, 32 Smith & Wesson. So having one in the original Nagant cartridge is particularly cool. So big thanks to the Estonian Defense Forces and the Supply Battalion in particular for giving me access to this pair to show to you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.